My name is Carl Arrow. I'm chair of this Legislative Redistricting Advisory Commission. We're here to listen. I'm going to say a couple of things, and I'm going to turn it over to a Legislative Services staff person to give you a little rundown on the numbers for this area, and then we're going to take your testimony. Everybody will have, well, if you're talking only about legislative, we were planning on 3 minutes. If you're talking about 5, but we don't have that many people, so I think we can give you everybody 5 minutes to make your case. So we'll get started. Let me introduce the members of the commission, just to be sure and for the record. To my right is Senate President Bill Ferguson. To my left is Speaker of the House Adrian Jones. To the President's right is President Pro Tem Melanie Griffith. And to her right is Senator Ed Riley, sitting in for Senator Simon Ayer. To the left of the Speaker is the Majority Leader Eric Lidke. And unfortunately, Delegate Buckle is not with us. He's from Allegheny County. Okay, so basically what I like to just set the stage a little bit and say a couple of things. One is that redistricting is certainly complicated, but yet very essential. The primary objective is really twofold. One person, one vote, and providing voters with the opportunity to vote for candidates of their choice. And of course, we have to do this within constitutional requirements and legal requirements. You know, population increases over time, but some areas gain and some areas lose, and it's not really that you've gained or you've lost, but it's how you've done that in relationship to all the other areas in the state. As I indicated, we have legal and constitutional criteria to be dealt with, and often they conflict with each other, and so it becomes a bit of a juggling act to make this all fit together so that we can achieve those primary objectives. Maryland's geography, both physical and political, are factors that add to the complexity of this task, but we're pretty sure we can do it. So we're here to listen. We want to hear what you have to say, and that's the first step in all of this. We've had several hearings, and we have a few more to go, and we're going to start getting some congressional maps out middle of next month, I think, is the plan. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Michelle Davis from Legislative Services, who can give us a little briefing on the numbers down this way. Michelle, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Well, I should say good evening. My name is Michelle Davis. I work for the Department of Legislative Services. This will be the third round of redistricting working at the department, so that's fun. This is my contact information on the slide, and I'll just get right into what the 2020 census means for Maryland in terms of our legislative and congressional districts. So at the outset, I'd like to remind everyone what the important numbers are, because in redistricting, these population numbers are the numbers that we have to sort of meet to some extent. So Maryland's adjusted population is 6,175,403. Excuse me, that's a little different, a slightly different number than the official number that you will see reported by the Census Bureau if you were to look it up online or something like that. And that's why we call it adjusted population. And what we mean by that is that according to state law, we adjust the population so that prisoners are counted not in their where they're incarcerated, but their last known state residence. And so you might ask, well, why is the number different if you're just moving people around in the same state? The answer is if a incarcerated individual was not a state resident when they were incarcerated, then we don't count them in the count. So that's why you have the different number. And the numbers below are what we call the ideal district populations for the various districts. So you can see for congressional districts what that number is, and then for the various iterations of legislative districts. So our legislative districts in Maryland could have 3 members, 2 members, or 1. And so those are the numbers that we are trying to get when we draw those districts. For the legislative districts, we're not trying to match these numbers exactly. We have some wiggle room, we like to call it. So generally speaking, that wiggle room is about plus or minus 5%. So we have the option of being within that sort of spectrum. For the congressional districts, we don't have a lot of wiggle room. We generally draw congressional districts down to 1 or 2 people, maybe 3 or 4 in an odd instance. And I've never, since I've been doing this, I don't think we've ever had a number, an ideal number for a congressional district that was even. So, so there's always an odd district out. So this map here is from the Maryland Department of Planning, and it indicates where all of the population growth was in the past 10 years, from the 2010 census to the 2020 census. And the dark blue are the counties that grew the most. And then there's a slightly lighter blue, and you can see in general that most of the growth has happened in central and southern Maryland, for the most part. So that includes where we are now. Charles County, I think the number, it's hard for me to see here. Charles County grew by almost 14%, I think, if my eyes are telling me right. So Charles County in particular is one of only 4 counties that have experienced double-digit growth in Maryland. So with that in mind, this is sort of the same map, except we're looking at how can I say, how overpopulated or underpopulated the existing districts are. And you may not be able to see the numbers on this map, but you can see the colors. And the colors indicate, red means the legislative district is currently underpopulated due to changes over the 10 years. And blue is overpopulated, which kind of corresponds to the previous map. And green means it's within deviation. So what does that mean? As you can see, there was a lot of growth in Maryland. I think the overall number is 7 or 8%. But the growth in Maryland is uneven. There are places where there was a decline in population, as you just saw, and then there are places where there was a pretty robust growth, as you might expect. And not just that, there's sort of another level. Even places that have grown, okay, they may not have grown as fast as other areas that are around them, and that also affects line drawing as well. And in particular, we're talking about Southern Maryland here. And I want to point out a couple of things about Southern Maryland when it comes to redistricting. The first thing is I did a comparison here of how many sort of districts ideally fit in the Southern Maryland area, and that's including Prince George's, this sort of calculation here. And as you can see, as a whole, you have gained, not quite a district, but you have gained a considerable amount of population. So your ideal number of districts altogether would be just over 10 in this area. The thing about Southern Maryland, however, is that you are in Southern Maryland, and you might ask, well, what does that mean? What that means is that when you start drawing a map for the state, if you want to draw districts for the whole state, it's really difficult to start in the middle and draw out, because generally that makes it almost impossible to balance out all of the districts. So the rational thing to do is to start at the edges and the edges meaning Western Maryland and Southern Maryland. So what that means is you have to look at what the population is in Southern Maryland and imagine drawing districts there first and then moving up. And if you can imagine that right now, looking at the map, you can see, it's very obvious, that there are going to be a number of shared districts in the region. And it's pretty hard to conceptualize until you actually try to do it. But it's very difficult to keep districts in counties or completely enclosed in a county if the county doesn't have sort of enough population for an equal number of districts, if that makes sense. So that's something to keep in mind, that there is going to be some district sharing, and you have to sort of figure out what would be best in terms of that. And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, so we're going to move on to witnesses, people who have signed up. So I'm trying to do this in order of the list that was given to me. So the first person I have on the list is Ella Ennis. And also, if you're all on this side, there's a reason we have extension cord over here. We don't want anybody to fall over it, so please do come around to that side.
Good evening. My name is Ella Ennis, and I am from Calvert County. I'm a lifelong Marylander, and I'm coming here tonight. I also submitted some written comments to you on redistricting. I believe that the current congressional and legislative districts are not faithful to the Maryland Constitution about being compact and contiguous, and I think that when you look at those districts and see that they look like prehistoric birds and snakes, and now some of them are only connected by a very thin line, or in Calvert's case, there's a district that's only connected by water. And I would like us to, in Maryland, not to be considered to be the most gerrymandered state in the Union in 2022. I would like to point out to you that in 2012, Calvert County had enough population for 2 single-member delegate districts, but they were instead split between 2 state senate districts and in parts of 3 House districts. And when you look at the bottom part in South Calvert was linked with St. Mary's, and in the middle section, we had a district that's completely within Calvert. And then in the north, we are connected to Prince George's County, except that to get from the Calvert part of this district to the Prince George's part, you've got to go through 2 other legislative districts. The only connection is across the Patuxent River, and there are no bridges there. There is no connection between the 2 parts of that district. And I'm asking you and urging you in your new map that you put Calvert County with 2 single-member delegate districts completely within Calvert County, and that you link us with a single-member district in southern Anne Arundel County, which is connected by land contiguously. It would make much more sense, if you will, but I am asking you, please do not bifurcate us into 3 parts again. And I would hope that you take into consideration that there are a number of districts in the state legislative districts that are underpopulated, and that these districts give certain regions more power and more control in the legislature than their population figures allow. And I'm asking that Calvert County not be discriminated against again, and that we have 2 single-member districts. On the congressional districts, I just urge you, please give us some compact and contiguous districts. I thank you for your time and for your hard work.
Thank you very much. The next person I have on my list is, oh no, I just was saying thank you. Appreciate your testimony. The next person I have on my list is Gilbert Bowling. Mr. Bowling? Okay. I'm going to recognize Delegate Patterson.
Thank you very much. For the record, I'm Delegate Edith Patterson, Chair of the Charleston County Delegation. That includes District 28, District 27A, and 27C. And so we want to welcome you, first of all, to Charleston County and to recognize and thank you for the hard work that you're doing, this really important work that you're doing for the citizens of our great state. Charleston County, as you saw on the slide, has experienced phenomenal growth. And not only do we have phenomenal growth, but we also have a great population that represents the diverse entities within this state. And we also recognize that our county is overpopulated by about 30,000 citizens. We want to keep them all, but we know that we have to release them. And so I'm only going to speak on behalf of District 28. And as a legislative team for District 28, we're concerned that we feel that citizens that cannot continue under our representation will have the same services and recognition that currently exists. With that in mind, we wish to continue as a multi-member delegate district with single-member districts in District 27A and 27C. Again, we appreciate your being here and for listening to the testimony that as District 28 team that we represent. Thank you again, and safe travels back home.
Thank you very much. Next person I have is Dawn Collins.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Collins, and I'm representing the League of Women Voters of Calvert County. The Commission has already heard from several other League of Women Voters, so there's not much need to repeat everything, except to highlight that the League supports a state redistricting process and standards with maximum opportunity for public scrutiny. We are pleased that the LRAC is holding public hearings, which is an improvement over the process 10 years ago. However, we still have several suggestions for improvement. The standards on which a redistricting plans are based must be enforceable in court, have equal population, effective representation of racial and linguistic minorities, and a promotion of fairness. Redistricting is important to us because where the lines are drawn matters for services, education, and community infrastructure. The opportunity to influence how maps are drawn comes only once every 10 years. Who represents our community is key to your success in obtaining resources and policies needed to support our communities. The League is asking this commission to present draft maps that will be available in enough time for the public to review and comment before the General Assembly votes on them. We are stressing. We have been participating in all the hearings from the Commission and Maryland Citizen Redistricting Commission. We've noticed it seems rather difficult for most people to engage on the basis of blank maps. Most comments are fairly general, and of course, there's enough difference of opinion for map drawers to conclude simply that we can't make everyone happy. But when people see a draft map, they are more likely to focus on the boundaries and react with feedback. That's why we insist on the opportunity for timely public feedback on draft maps before they come up for a vote. We are calling for the MGA to commit to making draft congressional maps available at least a month before the expected special session. We would also like to suggest that the LRAC put more effort into publicizing the hearings and make it easier for more members of the public to participate. The process for signing up a testimony should allow more time and be made more user-friendly. At the moment, the website is complicated and hard to navigate. Turning to the maps themselves, we have already stated our position, which is the same as both for the People Act and the New Freedom for Vote Act. The map should not be drawn to give any party advantage. The League respectfully requests that the maps this commission submits are fair and effective in representing the citizens of the state. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I noticed that Senator Ellis is here. Senator?
Thank you, Chairman Arrow, Speaker Jones, President Ferguson, and colleagues for being here. Welcome to Charles County. You know, it's a tough ride to get here. We have a problem that's a good problem, in that we are in, what color is that, blue? We're grown, right? We've grown tremendously, right? It's much better to be in the red. And it's a good thing. Charles County has grown tremendously. We have a very dynamic population here in Charles County. They're very involved in the process, keeping track of what's going on. And thank you for being here. I just want to say that the way Charles County is represented now is working for us. Charles County is kept compact in District 28. I represent District 28 in the Senate of Maryland. And it's very compact, but we cannot have just one senator currently. So we have District 27A as part of Charles County. We work closely well with the current senator in District 28, Senator Jackson. And if you would think, as we have to share more of District 28, that we will continue that kind of process, that kind of relationship with District 27, instead of having folks coming up from St. Mary's and coming out from Calvert and coming up from District 26. You know, it would be ideal if we keep Charles County as compact as we can. So we're sitting here in Waldorf. Waldorf is the population center of Charles County, and we would love to have Waldorf remain as compact as possible. And along with the rest of the county that I serve in District 28, you're looking at from Waldorf straight south to Cobb Island. Now, the old professor in me would say, those of you who've heard of Cobb Island, raise your hand. Oh, okay, great. Those who have visited Cobb Island, raise your hand. Okay, President Ferguson, yes. Beautiful area. Cobb Island is way south, maybe a 50-minute drive from where we are right now. I represent them very well. The demographics in Cobb Island is very different from demographics in Waldorf. I spend a lot of time in Cobb Island. I'm working on issues for the Cobb Island residents, issues such as they care about driving their golf carts on the streets of Cobb Island. Great problem to have, right? When that is a major issue. And so they want me to work in legislation this upcoming session for them to drive their golf carts on Cobb Island. I'm very aware of all the issues in District 28, whether it's Waldorf or south to Cobb Island. Different population dynamics, but the district as it is now work really well for all of us, well represented. So we would love a similar configuration as is now, and not basically lump a whole bunch of other senators into Charles County in a random way. We'll try to keep the communities very much compact. We'll try to keep the communities very much well represented in a multi-member district that's really working well for us. Myself, Delegate Patterson, Davis, Delegates Davis, C.T. Wilson, we're all over the county, knowing what the issues are. It's working well for us. So I would love to continue this, realizing that we will have to share more of Charles County with the current 27A. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for being here in Charles County, and I hope to welcome you back at another time.
Thank you, Senator. Okay, the next person I have on the list here is Randy Guy. Randy Guy. Dale Antosh. Okay. I'm not sure I can read the first name here, but Brown Lawson.
Good evening. I hope you don't mind if I pull my mask down. My name is Shawande Brown Lawson. I live in 27A, in an area that's kind of referred to as Gallant Green. But one thing that was mentioned was one person, one vote. One person, one vote. Does that mean that we confuse people by creating mixed districts where we have 2, 3 state representatives? Or do we say one person, one vote? Now, I understand that there are population density issues, and that makes sense. But still, one person, one vote. One other issue that I'm seeing a lot of is discussion of specifically focusing on race. There are a lot of other numbers and statistics that came out of the census that we just had that would also be very beneficial, including the number of people who are about to become voters, the number of people who are aging out or who have been deceased, the number of people who are new voters, the education levels, the economic base, many other factors kind of play into determining what characteristics a district is going to have that I believe is important in making a determination and drawing these lines. Now, 27A does not look compact to me, and it is actually split between Charles and Prince George's counties. My dream would be to see that I am grouped with other voters who are in a similar rural area. I don't know that Morningside can be considered to be rural. I don't know that areas up closer to, as we approach 495 from 5, are considered to be rural. And I understand that there may be ways for any representatives to be able to try to cover both areas. But from my window, I see St. Mary's County. When I drive down the road, I am sometimes behind a tractor. That tractor is not headed toward DC. That tractor is headed toward St. Mary's County. It's a very rural economy where I live, and it's very unique. And as a matter of fact, it probably shares a little bit more with following up Croom Road toward Brandywine than it does with the area toward Clinton and Morningside. So with that said, compact to me means looking at not only what the racial makeup is, not only looking at whether or not you have people who are voting Democrat, Republican, that sort of thing, and those numbers are all available and all should be added into the calculus. But it really does include thinking about things like, is this a rural area that has a rural economy? Is this an area that is that has Washington, D.C. Commuters? What are their needs? Are they the same as people who live in the Patuxent River watershed? So with that said, again, I want to kind of go back to briefly the Voting Rights Act and its sort of subsequent amendments. The idea was single member would allow for minority participation at the time. Now we know that minority as it's defined has changed over the years significantly. And looking at the makeup and of this panel here, I think it reflects very well a strong sense of diversity. And whether or not it was multi-member districts that got to that point, whether or not it was single-member districts that got to that point, I think that's something that should be taken into consideration. Where are we now? We are 60 years out from the 1960s, well, Civil Rights, Voting Rights Act. We still do have a long way to go with many particular issues. But where are we now? Let's move forward from here. Let's not continue to dredge up the past in an effort to try to change the current times and where we live and what we're living with. We have a lot of new people coming into the country who have a lot to share and who have worked hard to become legal citizens of this country. We need to respect them. And we also need to respect those whose ancestors have been here and who have built this country. So what have they done for us up to this point, and what are we going to do with all they have given to us for the future? So with that said, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One other person that I haven't called yet, Tracy Jones.
Good evening. Thank you for your efforts to ensure the process for drawing election maps is transparent and incorporates community voices. I am Tracy Jones, a resident of Charleston County. My testimony today is on behalf of the Tri-County, Maryland Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and our 144 active members. We urge this commission to, 1, ensure a fair and transparent process, 2, make certain that the voting power and participation in communities of color are not diluted or sacrificed, and 3, ensure that we continue to have the same or greater representation of women and minorities in elected offices. Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is a nonpartisan organization with 1,000 chapters in the U.S. and abroad. We have a total of 25 chapters in the state of Maryland. Our members are registered voters in every congressional and legislative district in this state. The Tri-County, Maryland Alumni Chapter serves Charleston County east of Route 301 and all of Calvert and St. Mary's counties, which covers Legislative District 27A, 27B, 27C, 28, 29A, 29B, 29C, and Congressional District 5. Based on the communities we serve, the combined median household income is $99,720, with 92% receiving a high school diploma or higher, and 31% receiving a bachelor's degree or higher. The combined percentage of persons in poverty is 6.6%. Our chapter's program addresses the needs of youth, seniors, and families. Our youth programs provide an opportunity for youth to network and engage while enhancing the education they receive in public school. Some of the topics include STEM, leadership skills, and money management and budgeting. This year, we have 60 youth enrolled in those programs. In the past, the chapter has partnered with the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the League of Women Voters, When We All Vote, Civic Nation, American Civil Liberties Union, the United States Census Bureau, and the Calvert, Charles, and St. Mary's Counties Sheriff's Departments. As you draw the maps, we ask that you always keep the Voting Rights Act as a priority to draw fair legislative maps that will not dilute the voting strength of African Americans and communities of color. Finally, data and history show that women have been grossly underrepresented at all levels of government. Based on the 2020 census, women make up 51.6% of the population in Maryland. However, they make up approximately 40% of our state and local political representatives. We are proud of Maryland's growth of women political leadership, and we want to ensure that we do not lose the female representation in the General Assembly. Additionally, we want to ensure that we do not lose the minority representation in the General Assembly who represent our communities, particularly since the 2020 census shows growth in Maryland's minority voting age population. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. There were several people who I called who were not here. I don't know if anybody has come in at this point. Mr. Bowling, Mr. Antosh, and I will point out that Mr. Guy sent written testimony. He is the president of the Commissioner of St. Mary's County. So I'll call that to your attention. It's in the notebooks. Real quickly, the testimony opposes the Maryland Citizens Redistricting Commission map of September 14th as it relates to St. Mary's County. Is there anybody else who wishes to testify at this time? Okay, well, thank you all very much for being here. We've heard what you had to say. We'll get down to the work. One other housekeeping thing, for general questions on the web, if you go to redistricting_LRAC@mlis.state.md.us. If you want to submit testimony, if you haven't already, it's testimony_LRAC@mlis.state.md.us. And if you want to submit maps, it's maps_LRAC at that same address of mlis.state.md.us. Thank you very much, and I believe this concludes our hearing.